All right. Well, hey Shama, I'm Tink.
Hello. How are you?
Welcome. I'm good. I'm good. I'm so thankful that you're able to join us on After Church.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So we aired our first episode last week, or well, I don't know when I'm going to post this. So we aired our first episode
A
at some
while
point,
back.
a while back, and we played.
Yeah,
Exactly, at some
all
point.
days are just there's yesterday and tomorrow. I saw a tweet like that and I'm like, yeah, that's today, yesterday, and tomorrow.
No, there's no more like yesterday or tomorrow. It's
No.
just day.
It's just
Every day
days.
is just
Yeah,
day.
that's it.
Exactly. Well, anyways, we aired it on a day, and we played the worship song, and it just, it had some amazing feedback. People were just dying laughing. I think someone
awesome.
even commented, was like, this is still better than every worship song.
Yes.
So,
yes. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution to that. I think my mom watched it too, and she was like, "Who was that song? That was really good." I was like, I mean, it is a really good song, isn't it? She didn't get that it was a joke.
Oh, man.
Okay, so you do worship songs. I mean, like, tell me what you do, because I know, like, from what I've seen on social media, you're like, you run Deuteronomies, you run a podcast, but like, you tell me what you do.
Man, at this point, I don't even know anymore. I do just any idea that kind of sparks in my head. So I've been in Greenville, South Carolina, for this is going on a decade this year. Moved here to go to a Bible college, and I ended up graduated from the Bible college. But during my time in school, I went to a small school, so they didn't really have like a mass comm program or anything. But I ended up teaming up with some people who went to a university close by called North Greenville, who did short films and music and a bunch of other stuff. So we ended up collaborating a ton. And over time, I ended up getting a job at a video production company here in town. And from that, the owner and my boss let me create some music videos, and they did really well online. And as of last summer, I was like, I think I've got something going. My wife and I were about to have a baby. I was like, I think I'm going to work from home. No plan.
Yes.
And I've been working from home almost going on a year. And it was going swimmingly up until recently, but I think everything is going to bounce back here soon. But yeah, I've been able to write music, edit. I work behind the camera a ton on some corporate projects here and there. But I get to do a lot of passion projects too. So it's kind of a mixture of both, and I'm super blessed. And I love getting to be home and getting to create stuff for people and for myself and for friends. So it's a ton of fun.
Come on.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I mean, it seems to be going off, and
yeah,
I think it's just something you can be proud of.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love the. I don't know. I think I tell my friend all the time, PD, who I write music, he co-wrote the worship song with me, and I also co-host a podcast with him. That growing up, so I was his youth pastor for a long time. He played guitar next to me in the worship song. I was his youth pastor, and I just thought he was so funny. And cut to almost 10 years later, and we're like writing and creating and co-hosting stuff together. But I always tell him that we were like when we were in youth ministry, I was a volunteer. I was like, I remember I used to be the person queuing up videos for people, for the youth and kids and whatever to watch. So I'm like, wow, now we're making videos that other people are queuing up to show us at churches. So I think it's just so awesome.
What a dream. So when did you decide to, work from home and start to create, like, because I feel like everybody goes through this point where they're serving, right? They're just serving, and they're like, serving someone else's vision. But when did you decide to kind of like not only serve your vision, but, just kind of risk it and start using your gift for yourself?
Yeah. So I made a song a couple of years ago called VeggieTales Remix with some friends, and made it, recorded the song in January with my producer, Andrew, and didn't get around to making a music video till like June or July. And then we put it out, and it just blew up. It got like 1 million views over like 24 hours, and it went crazy. And some VeggieTales producers who were actually working on a show at the time, they had just signed a deal. The day we released our song, that same week, they had just signed a deal to reboot VeggieTales. And so one of the producers reached out to me via Facebook Messenger and was like, hey, we're working on a show. We'd love for you to like write music and, you know, co-host or be a part of it in some way. And, you know, I was like, sure, everybody's got plans in this industry. So I'm like, yeah, great, we'll do it. None of it really happens. And that ended up developing over time. But with that and just a couple of opportunities from friends and little to no savings, I convinced my pregnant wife that I was like, hey, I think I can work from home, and I think that I could make a living and we could raise a baby. And it started off with me watching just a lot of YouTube videos in what I called my office. Just every single day, just watching a lot of just cutting up and laughing and being on the phone for a long period of time. But then work came in occasionally. So that's what my life is to this day. But yeah, it's just, you know, it's one of those things that when you know, a friend told me that. And it was the same for when I met my now wife. Yeah, when I knew. And I'm glad that I was right about that. And I was also right about taking the leap into, you know, freelancing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. And so how many kids do you have, if you don't mind?
I only have one. Yeah. One at the moment. A little boy. He's about to be 10 months old next week. His name is Ezra.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. He is round and he just started crawling. He army crawls, and it is
there you go.
A sight to see.
my daughter army crawled for so long. I have one baby.
Okay.
She army crawled for so long everywhere. And it was like this one where you use both hands.
Oh man. Oh wow. That's the real one.
I know. She was like a worm, just
crawling
everywhere. So
it is so funny. Yeah, we I feel like I've been like, there are moments during the timeline of the moment my wife told me that we're having a baby to different moments where I'm like, oh, it's real. Oh, now it's real. So the other day I baby proofed, like I put in like the safety things in all the outlets. Yeah. And while I was doing it, I was like, oh, it's even more real because now the little human is mobile. So, it was like there was a couple of days ago. So it was like a different level of, you know, just kind of like realization of like, wow, okay, I'm in this.
I know, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
All the time. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Like, okay.
Oh man. Yeah.
When you think you figured it out, you don't.
I was just talking about this the other day that when I was in kids ministry at camps, and I was in Royal Rangers growing up, which is like a Christian Boy Scouts. Yeah. You'd always look at like do you know Royal Rangers?
Oh yeah, my husband was in Royal Rangers.
Oh,
yeah, he loved it.
Yeah, it's not too many people. You don't hear too many people talking about it, but when you do, it's like, you know, there's. Oh yeah,
pride. His dad was like one of the Royal Rangers leaders or whatever. Yeah. I can't remember what you call them, but
commander.
Like, yes, he was a commander.
Commander. Yeah. But what was I saying? Oh, so you know, like I'd go on all these camping trips, and there was always like a college age, like, you know, counselor or a leader over us, and then it wasn't until I was the college, you know, leader over students. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I always assumed that they knew what they were doing, but it's one of those things you're like, you're in a position of authority because you're older and people think, oh, you know what you're doing. You're like, no, you don't. We're all of us are. Same with parenting. You know, we're calling my friends and they're like, I don't know. It's like, call your mom. I don't know. So it's fun.
Yeah. And like the perspective totally changes once you have a kid. Cause it's like, once you've had a kid, you're like, gosh, I was so blind to like how these people are living. You know, like their lifestyle was so different than mine.
Yeah.
And now it's like seeing for the first time. I was like, wow.
It's crazy. It's wild. But it's been good. I love it. I have been home a lot, and so I've been back and forth between like, you know, I should be working more, but then also, you know, I'm like, wow, well, you know, I got to make breakfast and, you know, just hang out with the family. So it's been good. I feel like God has been very faithful in my life. In the I've always, you know, he's always placed myself and now I'll say my family the right place at the right time. So I've felt late, but it's always been at the, you know, the right place at the right time. So yeah, that's it's been a huge blessing.
a part of After Church is really just hearing people's stories. Like, I'd love to know just your story and like how did the Lord bring you to where you are now? You know?
Oh, wow. So I was, I'm originally from Tanzania, East Africa. I was born there, moved here when I was 2 years old with my family. I have an older brother, and we had a younger sister who was born here in the States. We lived in Alabama, then we moved to South Carolina, where I live now. But when I turned 11, moved here when I was 2. When I turned 11, my family, we all became missionaries, and we moved back to Tanzania to do mission work. Whoa. So, it was a ton of fun. There were so many Tanzanians, there were so many East African families who had moved to the States, to make a life and to, to study. That's why my parents came. So my dad he went to college and then got a master's and a doctorate in theology. So we were going back to plant a church. And everybody kind of thought, what are you doing? You kind of made it. Here you are. We also had a green card. So it's kind of like you could just stay here forever. But God called us back and we all went. I'd say us. At the time, I was like 11. I didn't really know what was going on. I just knew to pack up and, be wherever. Yeah. So through that, I experienced so much being a missionary kid, planning a church and especially just planning a church in a third world country. Which, I'm from there, but I was very American because I moved here when I was 2 and I didn't have an accent. So I had to learn, how to be African, how to be Tanzanian in the culture because I looked the part and people would come up to me and speak in Swahili and I'd be like, I'm so sorry, dude. I can't. I think through that, I don't know. I don't think I really had a true encounter with the Lord until I moved back to college. I went through the motions a long time, and in Tanzania, I saw God heal people. I was at open air crusades, and I'd watch God heal people, and all these different things. And I guess it kind of happened around me, but never to me. And I just kind of lived how I wanted to live and collected filthy DVDs and had them, and in the same house that I lived with my parents, and just I wasn't a good son to my parents at all. And it wasn't until I moved back to college, and I moved to a Bible college of all places, and for some odd reason I had this understanding of when you as you mature, you kind of level out into different things, and it wasn't the case. What they say, I've heard people say, cracks turn to canyons. And I moved to college, moved to a Bible college here in Greenville, and I was very lost. I didn't know, what I was doing, and I was serving at a church, still didn't have it together. And I even became a youth pastor of a church, and I still didn't have it together. Right. And I think it wasn't until but I think I knew what to do. Growing up in the church, I knew the game. And I knew that you go to Bible college, and I graduated, and then I was serving at a church, which you have to serve, and then after that I was working at a church. But I don't think nothing really connected until because of my knuckleheadedness. And nothing terribly wrong, but it was just kind of like just butting of heads between me and the pastor at the time. And he saw fit, and I saw fit for him to let me go / me leave. It was a mutual understanding. And I was hard-headed, and I was like, I'll plant my own church. And I'm so glad that I didn't. And I think during that time, having to be kind of outside of the church, I guess, bubble that I was in, and having to be outside of the motions of just kind of doing the things and being there and high-fiving people and being like, what's up? And God is so good. And just kind of, I tell people I just came home. That was it. I got let go from church, and I just came home, and I was a church member for the first time in I don't know, maybe since I was like 11. Because I'd always
after you like left that youth pastoring job.
After I left the youth pastoring job. So from 11, when we moved back to Tanzania when I was 11 years old, up until like 21, 22, I had only worked, served at a church every Sunday. Right. Was serving, and when I left, it was almost like this, like a reset, like a deconstruction of what do I believe? What did I think? What was my plan? I guess my plan was I was dating a girl at the time. I was like, well, you get a degree, and a Bible degree, and you work for a church, and you get married. then you have 2 kids, and you buy a house, and you buy a couple cars, and then after that, if you're lucky enough, then you plant a church because you're a youth pastor. Then you become a real pastor, and I guess that's just like this plan that I have was like, I'll just do you do the things. I've seen people doing the things, and I'll do that. And I was kicked out / left, and I was delivering pizza. I delivered pizza all throughout college, and I still delivered pizza while I was a youth pastor. And I just went back to just delivering pizza, and it was a very humbling experience, and it taught me a lot. I listened to a lot of podcasts, listened to a lot of audiobooks, got into listening to a lot of Francis Chan, a lot of John Piper, just a bunch of different things, and I think from that, God, I believe I was truly, I guess I could say that I was truly saved. I had a real encounter with the Lord, and I prayed, and I cried, and I was distraught because I didn't have a plan B, and I delivered pizzas, and I ate pizzas, and I came home, and I would watch sermons, and listen to worship music, and I'd pray, and I'd cry, and it was just kind of like this same cycle. And for a long time, I thought, man, well, like I didn't, the church world was my identity / plan, and it wasn't there anymore. From that, I almost felt like I had a second chance at, I don't know, just at adulthood, when a guy who works at a video production company, Chris Brank, gave me a shot at hiring me. And it was I'll say the first time that I think I was in like a strong group of Christian professionals like my age, who were not in the church world. They all kind of came out of the church world, but they were in, like in the career world, in media, doing good work and loving the Lord, and also just being members of a church, just like I was at the time. And it was, we were all kind of figuring this thing out. And there were so many great conversations, and we traveled around the country, filming videos and staying in hotels and driving in rental cars. And we talked about so many different things with that team that I traveled with. And I credit those guys and that time in my life to encouraging me to be married to my wife, Grace. To this day, I tell her all the time, I'm like, if it wasn't for me working at Let People See and Chris Brank and Zach and David Gaskin, all these guys who were there, I'm like, I don't know. They really did. God used them to be instrumental. So yeah. And cut to from that to, now, creating videos for fun, spending my hard-earned money to create videos on weekends that now, are shown in churches, and stuff kind of ends up like this. So I'm like, I left the church, and I was disheartened because I thought, I couldn't cut it in ministry. And I'm like, well, I just didn't cut it in, I guess like my cookie cutter understanding of what ministry was. So yeah.
Gosh, that is so inspiring, Shama. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And now you get to like cook breakfast and be with your family, and you're doing the Lord's work. You're literally doing ministry.
I mean, but yeah, I think there was a lot of pain in my heart for, kind of realizing, I didn't cut it. Like I didn't cut working in a church. But what people were telling me when I left the church, that church, not the church. When I left but when I left that church, people were telling me, well, you got a degree, a Bible college degree, just go, interview to work at another church. And I was just kind of like, man, is this just what people do? Just become a free agent, and then you get drafted by another church, and you get drafted by another church. And I just knew that I was like, I don't want to do that. And I think the I guess one of the most embarrassing times of my life was, having a college degree and working at a church for a while and doing some really cool ministry things. And then people seeing me later on and being like, dude, what are you up to? And I'm like, dude, right now I just deliver pizza, Oh, what do you do? Would you do anything cool? And I'm like, no, No, I don't
No.
do anything cool. Like nothing. I don't do, you're not going to be at, I'm like, no, I'm not going to be at camp. I'm not going to be at the conference. Like, I'm just working.
I'm just chilling.
Yeah. And, you know, I hated to say that at the time because, you know, you felt like a failure. But it wasn't. I think I loved that time. Yeah. So it was
and like
exactly
how you
what I
just
needed.
you described that time of your life where you actually met the Lord.
Right.
So like,
yeah.
what did you learn about yourself and about God in those times that you were delivering pizzas after you were doing ministry hardcore?
Yeah.
Like what happened for you?
Oh, man, you know, I think I really just learned to just trust the Lord, you know? And I said that a lot, and I heard people say that, you know, my parents taught and preached that. But yeah, there's something about being derailed, you know, especially during that, you know, that early 20s part of your life. There's something about being derailed where you're like, oh, I never had it. You know what I mean? It's just
Right.
like, you know, realizing that you're like, oh, I can't, there's no amount of like wit and skill and like, you know, connections that are going to get me to a certain point. Yeah, that's,
Right.
you know, that was the thing is, and then I also got dumped during that time too. And I talk about that. I talk about that too. And people were like, "Yo, why are you bringing it up?" I'm like, it's embarrassing, but man, it was heartbreaking. But you know, it's one of those things that when a lot of that stuff, you know, happens kind of back to back. You know, at the time, I felt like Job. You know, nothing. Just a stretch. But you know, at the time, I'm like, oh, everything's going wrong. But you know, yeah, I was like, man, us as, you know, as Christians, we're really not in control of I guess our futures and the things that we do and the, I don't know, and the friendships, because I lost friends, you know, kind of leaving a church family, I guess. Yeah, I just thought, wow, you know, wow. I realized, you know, whatever happens after this isn't going to be because of my doing. Right. You know, it's going to have to be the Lord.
Yeah.
I listened to a Israel Houghton album.
Love him.
I can't remember. Yeah. Oh man, there was this one song. I am speechless. It's your grace, Lord, your grace. I receive it. I need it. Yeah. It was just one of the things where I was like, oh yeah, I like, you know, yeah. And it was a break. You know what I mean? It was like a clear breaking point. And you know, I can pinpoint my life today and the people that I know and my wife from that, you know, like that valley, I guess you could say, to be cliche. Yeah. The people that I met and the opportunities that have come from that currently all kind of came from, okay, you're done with, you know, this ministry that you thought you were great at, and these people and these relationships, and you know, here's a whole new, you know, set of friends and a career and purpose and ministry. So yeah. That makes sense. I feel like I stumbled through that.
No, that totally makes sense. And I feel like it's so relatable for so many people that have been in ministry for so long. And you know the lingo, you know the talk, and you take that ministry life and it becomes this, like, I guess this path that if you don't stay on it, then you're out of God's will, you know. And it's like what you just said, like it all of a sudden becomes about, do I trust the Lord really, or do I trust this path that's been drawn out for me? Yeah,
I remember Francis Chan had a saying. He's just like, you know, what, you know, when we talk about faith, what area of your life are you actually applying faith? And and you know, at the time, you know, I mean, working for church, I was like, nothing. I give my 10%, you know, I got a car, I got money, and I go out to eat. But, you know, from that, I'm like, oh, I really, you know, I'm like, I really have to apply faith right now into God. Like, help me get somewhere, help me go somewhere, help me meet the right people. And yeah, that, I wish there was like a shortcut to it for everyone. Like, I wish, like, oh, I want everyone to just be like, you get to that point and then you're done. But yeah, you know, you live long enough, I think you're going to have to bleed a little But from that, you come on the other side. That's not even the other side. I don't even know. This is not the end. I guess I don't know what could happen next, but hopefully I'll have more. I'll take it with more grace.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think everything that you've said is just so full of like wisdom and reality. Like, I think people just need to hear the real stuff, and I just appreciate how real you're being.
Yeah, I appreciate. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to encourage people. I think more than anything. And I when I say this, I don't want to come across as like anti ministry and church, but I didn't talk about this, but I didn't. It up until a couple of years ago, my understanding was the greatest thing that you can do for the Lord was in the four walls of a church, but I've met so many great people who work, in, marketing agencies and, behind cameras and with gear and at restaurants and manage coffee shops. And I'm like, oh, wow, that is a calling. And I'm so glad and honored that to recognize that, productivity for the kingdom of heaven can happen outside of what people deem ministry. Because there's that idea of like, come and serve and you come and do this. And that person's been serving and that person worked 70 hours here between their job. But then there are people who are like, they're just faithfully waiting tables, or a guy who's just a faithful mechanic. And, maybe he's not charging some people and maybe he's doing something else. I'm like, man, I at the time, like, I think now I have more, I want to just say grace and just understanding to be like, man, more than anything, more than just like being called to teach and reach and go. I just want to encourage people to be like, man, just stick in that, just be in that pocket and you'll kind of find out what you're doing and be like, okay, oh, this was it. This for this season, this was it. And for the next season, that was it. So, right.
It's a confronting thing to think that, you are doing the church's work, even if you are waiting tables faithfully.
Right.
And so I think that's an incredible perspective to share with people.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, it's been good. I'm super excited. I love I love the Lord, and I love that, everything has kind of come from all these things, life looks very different now than what I thought it was going to look like. But I'm super glad that my plans didn't work out.
Right. And it's just like God.
Yeah.
It's just like God for you to have had no idea. And now you're like cooking breakfast and making making a living from watching YouTube videos.
It's crazy. Yeah. Occasionally I'll make something too, but it's a lot of watching.
Yeah, totally.
It's research.
It's a lot of research.
Yeah,
I don't want to take up more of your time. I know that you got to go, but I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your videos with us.
Appreciate it.
I'm hoping that you're okay with me just spotlighting more of your footage.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I just love it.
For sure.
The audience loves it. So we're going to keep on spotlighting those. And how can we support you in what you do? Like, do you have a website, that kind of stuff?
Wow. So I don't have a website or business cards. I want to see if I can make it past a year working on my own without business cards or a website. But I co-founded a channel called After School Program on YouTube, which is just I guess like a conglomerate media ad agency of marketing team that we create all this great content that you've been sharing. So check out After School Program. I co-host a podcast called Church Stories with my friend PD Bachman, where we just talk about hilarious, funny, insightful church stories weekly. I also have a meme ministry. No.
Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy is I'm an admin on a really, really well loved page called Deuteronomy Memes. Check that out and just follow me, keep up with me, raising a little brown boy and making stuff and figuring it out.
Shama for reals.
Yeah.